You're watching Mick and T's Sports Report on CHCO-TV. And now, here's two guys who once won back-to-back meat draws at a pub in Alberta, Evan and Joe.
I'm Joe Ticotsky down in New Haven, Connecticut.
And I'm Evan McFarlane here in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, Canada, where my golf course is finally open, but it is snowing out right now.
That is not a good sign.
It is not. Hey, poor man's fertilizer, we like to call it around here.
This is episode 36 of Mick and T's Sports Report. And as Mark mentioned in our opening, we recently won a meat draw in Alberta.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pop up our Love the Leaf background. Why don't you explain, since you're the Canadian, what the heck a meat draw is?
Well, other than filling both of our deep freezes, meat draw is essentially just a raffle for meat. Is what it is. We got the winning ticket and we filled our freezer.
And these are done like at bars and clubs and places like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's different variations of them, but that's usually what it is. Usually a fundraiser, and the ones I've done have been like almost like, you know what like a toonie board looks like, where there's all the numbers, and then you buy your number, and then they draw the winning number, and if it's yours, then you win. Those are the ones that I've been in.
A meat draw, excellent.
A meat draw. But I mean, hey, that's good Alberta beef we latched onto, so hooray for us.
Not for vegans. We'll continue with Love the Leaf. Early next year, I read the province of New Brunswick will get a second area code, adding to the current 506. The new area code will be 428, which coincidentally was also my math SAT score back in high school. But welcome to the big time of a second area code. And then how about this picture that I dug up? That's the mayor right in the middle, Brad Henderson, the mayor of St. Andrews. And on the right is you. Why don't you explain what this picture is? Yeah,
so this was kind of a welcome back curling bonspiel that we've talked about in previous episodes. The Heather Curling Club in St. Andrews hasn't had a chance to do any events for the last couple of years due to the pandemic, so they did just a little fun one. This is my team, I guess, starting from the screens left to right. We've got real estate agent Paul Logan, who's supplied our uniforms for the team. He works for Keller Williams. My good friend Bryce Stewart next to him. We've got our Majesty Brad Henderson, who we just decided to photobomb us. And then on my left, the screen's right, would be our skip Mike Bartlett, who single-handedly made it so we could even compete in any of these games because we were very good.
That is impressive.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was good to see some people back in the club for sure. I was glad to support it.
Curling and meat draws doesn't get any better. All right, let's move.
How Canadian is that?
Exactly. Let's move on to the music spotlight, and we're just going to go one each episode now since they're going a little longer. This woman's name is Jane Hawley. She is from Alberta. She is married to a bull rider and was once in a band called Beautiful Joe. That's
wow. Okay.
I've heard that before. Well, here she is with her backing group, Aunt Betty's Band, on a truly unique tune called Big Sky.
I am seeing through the big sky. I look above and I can only sigh, 'cause I know this feeling's real, but somehow I cannot steal the big sky. Big sky. Big sky. Well, I see my sun is shining and I hear my moon is crying in the big sky.
And coming up next, we'll interview one of the top sports journalists in the world who wrote a book with one of the top golfers in the world, whose first name is also that of a large striped animal that may or may not rhyme with miger. This is Mick and T's Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Welcome back to Mick and T's Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Our first guest is a native of Toronto who is an accomplished golf journalist and author. He's won the National Magazine Award in Canada, is a member of the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame, and in 2018, the PGA of America presented him with its Lifetime Achievement Award. We're honored to welcome in Lorne Rubenstein to the show. Welcome, Lorne.
Thank you. Nice of you to invite me on. Talk a little golf.
Here we go.
That's one of my favorite things to talk about.
I'm sure it is, Evan.
All right, let's get rolling. How did you start out in, say, sports journalism, and what drew you specifically to covering and writing about golf?
Well, with me, it was really a case of one thing leading to another. You know, I was a fairly decent junior and amateur golfer, and I played tournaments. And then I continued in school for a long time. I did an MA in psychology and was actually doing a PhD at the same time. But I also was so infatuated with golf and what made some people really play it well, and others who might have had a similar amount of physical ability not play so well in tournaments. I think that got me reading about the game, and it was a natural adjunct to psychology, you might say, the mental side of the game. And I started caddying on the PGA Tour a few tournaments a year, and that got me inside the game. And then I approached the Globe and Mail to do a column on golf, a regular column, and they went for that way back when in 1980. And we started Score magazine the same year in Canada, our national publication, and I was the first editor. So I kind of got lucky in a way, catching on with the Globe and with Score magazine, because they're both national publications. And once you write for national publications, you know, you get a little wider audience, and that led to really writing for magazines around the world. And we had a TV show on our sports network here in Canada for about a dozen years. So, you know, none of it was planned, I have to say, Joe and Evan. It was one thing leading to another, and it ended up being, you know, a very enjoyable career.
Great. Evan, you got a question about what we're all wondering.
Yeah, and I mean, we can talk about a million things that you've done, Laura, and so many things that are interesting, but me being such a huge fan of the guy, you had an opportunity to do a memoir about Tiger's historic Masters win in '97. Can you maybe just give us a snippet of how that came about and what the experience was like? Because I love it.
Sure. Well, first of all, I was at that '97 Masters, and so clearly remember Tiger shooting 40 on the front nine, 4 over, and people saying, well, he's done. It's much more difficult playing professional golf in a major than it is playing amateur golf and winning juniors, national juniors, and national amateurs. But you could see that he had something special, obviously, winning all those national tournaments. And then, you know, you fast forward a number of years to when he was approaching his 40th birthday in 2015. And I'd got to know him a little bit and some of the people who worked with him. And I approached them with the idea of my doing an article for a non-golf magazine, so we could talk about just about everything, not only his performance on the golf course, and because I knew everybody, you know, it's a landmark birthday, 40. He's Tiger Woods, and he was suffering from his back injuries. He hadn't yet had spinal fusion, but he'd had a few of the microdiscectomies, so he really wasn't playing really at all at the time. So I figured maybe he'd have some time to chat, and they agreed to do that. I did a Q&A with him for Time magazine just before his 40th birthday. It was published, and that got a lot of attention. And then a few months later, I started wondering, well, I wonder if there's a book somehow that I could do with Tiger. And then I realized it was coming up to his 20th anniversary of that win in '97 at the Masters. So again, I approached Tiger and his team about doing that, and lo and behold, they agreed to do that. And we spent quite a bit of time together on the book. You know, I live in the winter in Jupiter, Florida, which is really, it's around the corner from Jupiter Island where he lives. There aren't as many zeros in the place where we live and the value of it than where Tiger lives. But his office is very close. I could walk there, and one thing led to another, and we got the contract for the book, got that settled, and I would go over to his office. We'd sit in one of his sort of boardrooms there and just chat, have lunch together, and the book came out of that. So it was a great experience sitting there. CBS provided us with the entire telecast of the '97 Masters video, and we sat there watching it, and I would ask him questions about different shots he hit. And at the same time, we would talk about other subjects as well. You know the way it is when you talk golf, one thing leads to another, to another, to another. And it was really just a free-floating conversation over a long period of time that led to the book. And really a lot of fun to do. You know, I always say, you know, if I were writing, for example, about jazz, you know, I would love to have had the opportunity to talk to some of the jazz masters while they're performing, you know, or while they're practicing, I should say. And that's how it was with Tiger. You know, I'm a golf swing nerd, probably to the detriment of my own game, and having the opportunity to talk to him about his game and the swing changes he'd made and the shots he hit at the Masters. And since then, it was just so much fun. It was really a highlight of my writing career.
All right. Now, sort of connected with that, fast forward to this year and his Masters, and even moving forward, how do you think, if you had to map out, say, like his next 2 years, how do you think he'll be able to do?
Well, I knew one thing from doing the book with him. When we were sitting in that sort of boardroom in his office and he was in pain, he had a pillow behind his back, sitting on a chair. He would get up, stretch, walk around. But the one thing I saw in him was his resolve to get back. If there were any chance of his getting back and playing at the highest levels and feeling he had a chance to win, he was going to do that, no matter how much work he took. Now, of course, at that time, nobody was contemplating he would be having an accident that almost took his life. And, you know, where there's, you know, they talked about amputating his leg, as you know, and to see him come from that to playing in the Masters was really something. But it didn't surprise me in the sense that he always said if he could get there, if his surgeons and team indicated that he couldn't really damage himself more or hurt himself more, he would do everything he could. And of course, he's not very public about what he went through to get to this point where he could tee it up at Augusta. But I can assure you it was hours and hours and hours of rigorous physical treatment and exercises and times and days when he didn't want to do a thing. And yet he was cajoled into it with that long-term view of, hey, man, you got to do it if you want to get back there. And he wouldn't be out there if he didn't think he could win. Now, last week, you know, the Masters was an aberration in the sense that really it wasn't likely that he was going to be in contention, but just playing 72 holes, walking those hills of Augusta was a notable accomplishment. And I really think and have thought for quite a while that the tournament he's most gunning for is the Open at St. Andrews this summer, because it's flat. Right. And it's 3 months from now and he'll have more treatment. That's not to say he's going to just automatically go out and win. He's 46 years old. And it's not like 2008 when he won the U.S. Open on a broken leg. He's 14 years older and he's been through all this. So we'll see. But he is being straightforward when he says he does not want to tee it up in a tournament unless he feels he can win. If he gets to the point where he feels that his best is not enough to beat the best of the rest, then he just won't be playing.
Right.
Well, Evan, that's a perfect tie-in from one St. Andrews to the other. Why don't you ask?
Absolutely. Yeah, Lorne, we were fortunate to have you here with a bunch of other decorated Canadian writers last year as part of a fan event. And just with our millions of viewers that we have on the show that are from around the area, maybe you could give us kind of a bit of your experience and what you thought of the course and the town.
Well, I loved it. You know, I mean, I'm a great fan of smaller towns where golf is central to the town, life of the town. And in your case, it also is, you know, so good that it's drawing and will draw even more people from around the world who want to play some of the great golf courses. For me, it reminded me of Dornoch and the Highlands in north of Scotland, where I spent the summer of 2000 and wrote a book about that. And I'll be going back actually in a couple of months. Had really that feeling of being you know, a small place in a beautiful area that really gives you the feeling of freedom on the golf course. And that's what I enjoyed really the most, the kind of work that's been done on the golf course by, you know, most recently Rod Whitman and Keith Cutton, opening up the views, generating the ground game, the running game, which, you know, I enjoy playing. I mean, I have to say I enjoyed that type of golf even before I couldn't hit the ball very far as I got older, because it gives you an opportunity to play and to hit different shots. And, you know, the combination there of the respect for tradition, you might say, along with the modernization of the golf course and the hotel, it's that mixture that really attracted me to, St. Andrews by the Sea and to the Algonquin. And I'm so glad I got a chance to visit there. I'd been there once before, but before all of the work had been done on the golf course and the hotel. And I know it's not going to stop. It's just, they've been doing all the right things. And of course, hiring people like you is a tremendous achievement.
I was going to say, I was going to pat you on the back for not critiquing some of their hiring practices, but we won't. But no, that it is, I visited there a number of times, and it's, for anyone that's never been there, it's worth it. Quick question before we let you out here. Give us a way too early pick for the winner of the PGA Championship in May.
I don't see any reason Justin Thomas shouldn't be right there at the end. He shot what did he shoot the first round of the Masters? He shot 76, and he came back where he had a good chance going into the last round.
Yeah.
You sort of want to pick Scotty Scheffler again because he's playing such amazing golf, but something in you, at least in me, says this can't go on forever. He's really elevated himself, but is he going to come out and win the PGA? And then you're going to pick him for the U.S. Open. And listen, the guy's playing phenomenal golf. He's full of confidence. But at some point, others will rise up and challenge him. But I guess I would go to a traditional pick in the last few years, which would be Justin Thomas. And of course, I think he's already won the PGA. So that wouldn't surprise me. I'd love to see Rory do it also. I really would, with what he did in the last round at Augusta. We'll see. There's so many wonderful young players out there now.
Justin Thomas, I'll be getting on my DraftKings account later on today, and but that's a good pick. I'll keep note of that. Well, he is Lorne Rubenstein, golf journalist and renowned author. And Lorne, this has been quite the honor to have you on the show, and thanks so much for being on with us.
You bet. Maybe we'll play Yale together sometime.
There we go. Well, coming up next on our small town spotlight, we will head to British Columbia to visit a store that has some interesting residents on its roof. You're watching Mick and T Sports Report on CHCO from the mean streets of St. Andrews, New Brunswick. It's time for another edition of Small Town Spotlight here on CHCO. You can watch our show on the station's YouTube channel, and since we're also available on Bell Satellite throughout Canada, you can watch our show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights if you live in Trout Lake, Alberta, Trout Lake, British Columbia, or Trout Lake in the Northwest Territories. For this edition of Small Town Spotlight, we head 3 hours west of Vancouver and 5 hours northwest of Seattle to Vancouver Island in the province of British Columbia, in the community of Coombs with a population of 1,327. Coombs was established in 1910 under a Salvation Army emigration plan to relocate people from the crowded cities of Great Britain, and was named after Thomas Coombs, the head of the Salvation Army movement in Canada. But the best thing about Coombs, BC is the old country market and their famous boats on the roof. Wait. Oh, my producer's telling me that apparently they have goats on the roof, not boats. Well, that certainly changes everything. Geez, I feel a little bit like Emily Latella. Well, if that's the case and there are actually goats on the roof, then we definitely need to find out more. Let's welcome in Arthur Urie, General Manager of the Old Country Market in Coombs. Arthur, welcome to the show.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Let's find out about the place. In 1973, I see the market started as just a simple roadside fruit stand. So who started the original market, and how did they get the idea to put grass on your roof?
Right out of the gate. Hey, Joe, good for you. Hey, so in 1973, a fellow by the name of Larry Geeky, who has been the original owner, decided to open up a fruit stand in the middle of Coombs. And that was sort of a side hobby for his main job of working for a local dairy company. But in the summer, he had some time off, so he thought he'd open a small fruit stand. And at that point, it was so well received that over the course of the next few years, his father-in-law, who was Norwegian, decided to say, hey, Larry, I think we should maybe build an old log building with a grass roof that was very reminiscent of his background. And Larry's father-in-law his name was Christian Grattan. And so this building was built. It had sod put on the roof, and off they went with at that time his brother-in-law. And so the fruit stand merged into a hamburger stand, and they offered, Okanagan fresh fruit and hamburgers through the summers.
All right. So then how did it go from grass on the roof to goats on the grass on the roof?
Okay. So as legend has it, and this is strictly by, rumor. I think it was in 1973 this happened. Was the market had been in its infancy of a grass roofed sod building. And because Coombs is heavily influenced, a lot of agricultural 4-H community, a lot of livestock in the area, they host a fall fair. And so at that time, they ran out of space at the fair for goats. The goats had no place to store them for the weekend. So Larry and his friend who had the goats, I guess they had dinner at Larry's house. And I think there was mention of some wine, maybe at dinner, maybe a little more than normal. And, he said, geez, Larry, I've got no place to put these goats for the weekend. And Larry just sort of said, well, I got a grass roof. Why don't we just put them up there for a few days? And I'm not kidding. It just took off like that. And then, here we are 47 years later.
Amazing. Amazing. Now, how many hours a day are the goats outside on the roof?
Well, they actually live up there from about mid-April to the end of October.
Okay. All right. Are there ever any issues with, and these may be questions that you may be saying, I can't believe he's asking these, but like weather, any issues with that with the goats out there?
You know what? Usually that's why we wait until April. Weather is a lot more milder, a lot drier, a lot warmer, so they're up there in a very climatable weather. Except for, lately it's been a little erratic in the weather. So we're happy to have them still in the pasture right now.
Do any of them ever say like, I'm going to bolt it and just run off the end of the roof and run to freedom or anything like that?
Okay, well, here's the story. Okay, so these goats are actually my wife's goats, right? They're our family. And there's some twins up there called Minion and Nibbles. And there's one of their cousins is named Pip. So Pip is now 2 years into being up on the roof. His first year was the year before last. So 2021, I think it was 2020. It was the year we reopened after our COVID closure.
Okay.
We opened May 17th. The goats came up on May the 19th. And Pip was the first day on the roof. And of course, he had because of their pets of our home, we've got a dog at home that they play with in the yard and whatnot. And this dog was on the property with their owners, and they were bleating and baaing and barking back and forth. And of course, the goat wanted to play with the dog. So Pip jumped off the roof. And it was, it's a substantial height. So the goat jumped off the roof and started playing with the dog, and the dog started licking the goat, and it was quite something, and here's a group of socially minded, physically distanced people that didn't want to get too close, but they were trying to capture this runaway goat. It was quite funny.
Did the twins then say like, geez, we didn't realize that we were allowed to jump off the roof? We would have been trying that way back.
They're 5 years into the roof, so into their tenure at the roof, so they know better,
And I'm sure they each have their own personalities.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, Minion is he's the leader of the pack.
Okay, all right. Favorite foods they like to eat? What are they usually chowing down?
Normally what we feed them, we give them what they call a goat texture and lots of hay. But I know that they've had the occasional ice cream cone snuck up there by our patrons, but they'll eat just about anything. Should they eat just about anything? No, but they invariably get a few treats.
All right, now tell us a bit about the market itself, what it's like, what you sell there. I know there are a bunch of different parts to it.
Yeah, there sure are. Okay, so you've got a nice shot of our place right there behind you, Joe, and that jukebox has since been retired, unfortunately. But our place, we've come up with a lot of products that you just can't really find anywhere else in our local community, and hopefully even farther than that. So we shop the world for all kinds of products, whether it's imported food items, or if it's toys and treats for the kids from around the world. We do that. We have a sort of an old school deli here too, that if you want your pastrami sliced for your pastrami sandwich, we got it for you. We've got a creamery where we make our own ice cream. And just in the last few years, we've come up with a donut shop, which unless kind of too bad because you don't have smell-o-vision on this Zoom interview. But if you did, right behind my office here is our donut shop, where we make we make some pretty good donuts. And it's a torture seat for me to be here at this office.
Yeah. And what's the name of the ice cream place? I think I saw it online. It's something cute, right?
Yeah, we call it Billy Gruff's Creamery.
There you go, Billy Gruff's. Nice. Well, the market's website is oldcountrymarket.com, and they have a great Instagram account at Goats on the Roof. And he is Arthur Urie, general manager of the Old Country Market in Coombs, British Columbia on Vancouver Island. And Arthur, as I tell all of our small town spotlight guests, if you're ever down in the US and you're in New England, stop off in New Haven, Connecticut, and I will bring you some of our world famous thin crust pizza. You could even bring the crust back for the goats if you'd like.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. I forgot to mention this though, Joe. We've got a pizzeria here too. And you know what? It's got a pretty good name for itself too. We might have to put those pizzas crust to crust and see what happens.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Well, Arthur, thanks so much for telling us about your unique market. And we're going to put the website up there, and hopefully if any of our viewers are out in that area, they'll take a look and check it out.
Well, that's really nice of you, Joe. I really appreciate you taking the time to look up Coombs on the map.
Welcome back. Those were a couple great interviews there. A fantastic one from Arthur in BC. But how about Lorne? I mean, I could listen to that guy talk all day. I mean, I've had the chance to sit with him a few times, and when he talks, you listen because he's got some crazy stories.
He is quite a prolific writer, and I think he has written more books than the two of us have read combined.
I mean, we got to give him a little more credit than that, but I'm sure he's done more.
There we go. All right, let's go right to the shout outs as we're short on time. Once again, I'll hold off on mine till next episode, but who do you have?
Yeah, mine's going to be pretty general, but it's that time of year. I'm just going to give a shout out to everybody in the golf industry, all the pros, all the front and back shop staff, all the superintendents and the turf crew. This is a real grind. Coming out of the winter, everybody's always excited to play, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes before that can happen. So keep grinding, guys. It's going to be a good year, and congrats to everybody getting opened up.
Excellent one. Well, that is it for episode 36 of Mick and T's Sports Report. I'm Joe here in New Haven.
And I'm Evan here in St. Andrews.
Thanks to CHCO-TV station manager Patrick Watt and editor Florence Mitchell. And I just realized you can't spell Florence Mitchell without CHCO. How corny is that? Well, that duo does a tremendous job of producing and editing a show that is basically the Ted Lasso of Canadian community television. And now that we've once again come to the end of another show, in honor of those goats on the roof, we'll leave you with peace, love, and I think that's a goat, but I'm not sure. Well, this is Mick and T's Sports Report on CHCO. We'll see you next time.